Hi, my name is Stephanie Paul. I'm the Executive Director of the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. I want to welcome you. We're going to be discussing the CRSurveyor Collector application and overview on this webinar. As for today's overview, we're going to include the following items. I will be going over the logistics and project overview piece, the introduction of the partners and project roles, the project outline and overview, and the pricing scale and proprietary agreement. For the technical overview piece, we'll have Emerson Chu, and he is with GIS Inc. And GIS Inc. is our GIS consultant partner who will be working with the various partners, and he will go over what GIS Esri Collector application is, the hosted feature layers, how to use the GIS Esri Collector application, and a little information about our dashboard. Just for a few items, I'm sure I'll have a little more in some video. An overview on the CRSurveyor. The CRSurveyor is designed to allow communities to survey historic buildings digitally using a common data format. The need for a platform such as CRSurveyor Collector app came out of the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. It became obvious that a digital system to collect and share data was crucial not only for a faster response in the wake of a disaster, but for the larger purpose of sharing data between entities at the federal, state, and local levels. The underlying geographic data sets, or the building footprints, road and text parcels, are services or data sets that are supplied by the city, state, or other entities using the tool can be easily changed with small modifications. These data sets in general pull from services located in ArcGIS Online, so they can be accessed from anywhere. The data is served into a data structure that matches the National Park Service Cultural Resource Data Transfer Standard in the National Register format. This data can be collected offline and synced when the surveyor obtains connectivity. This is what we typically call disconnected editing. And so this is a great feature, so you don't have to be connected to Wi-Fi or cell data when collecting information. The project partners, the primary project partners are the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions and the National Park Service. And the role of the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, NAPC serves as the overall facilitator of the project. The contract agreement for the customization and deployment of the app is signed between the host community and NAPC. NAPC currently contracts with GIS Inc., which is a GIS consulting firm. And GIS Inc. will also be working with each host community to develop and deploy the app. NAPC ensures that the project is meeting all the benchmarks and the timelines are being met, and just the overall kind of health and project of the project. So just making sure we get it all out to all of our communities and it's working properly. The National Park Service. The National Park Service has been the lead and key in the development of the app from the inception of it. The two primary divisions from the National Park Service working on the project. First is the State, Tribal, Local Plans and Grants Division, or Steel Pig, as they call themselves. They serve as a partner in all aspects of deployment, and again, we're a lead partner in the development of the CRSurveyor app. Second department there is the Cultural Resource GIS facility. They offer and provide enormous technical assistance, and they also serve as a project facilitator, and they are really the technical and GIS liaison between the Park Service, NAPC, and GIS Inc. That's with their expertise. They are the ones that have created the Cultural Resource and Spatial Data Transfer Standards, allowing users to link the National Park Service cultural resource inventories together based on geography. And so really they've set the standards and are able to kind of connect us all and with the technical aspects of it. What we've created, just to kind of give you a better idea of how the life cycle and of the project goes, we created a flow chart which we thought would be helpful to see kind of what happens from the beginning and who will be helping where, because we do have different partners coming in at different times. And the first, in phase one, the National Park Service has already developed a webinar, and this is for data sharing and standards information, in particular for those projects that are serviced with National Park Service funding. For all deployment partners during this phase, there will be an introductory and preparatory call with the National Park Service Cultural Resources GIS department, kind of going over the GIS software. Those requirements will be discussed and questions answered, and we'll go over any technical, requirements and questions at this time, and really kind of get a feel for where each community is as far as their level of comfort and expertise and capacity for this project. Once all these tasks have been completed, at this point, the host deployment partner will be transferred over to NAPC for the next phase of the process, which is phase two, where we kind of define and distribute our resources and discuss the partner expectations. NAPC at this point will share, we have a CRSurveyor administrative guide. We'll give that to the host deployment partner. This is a comprehensive overall view of all the different aspects of the app and deployment. This is a detailed description of steps for deployment as prepared by our partner and consultant GIS Inc. We also have a user field guide, which outlines steps to successfully downloading the native application and completing the field survey and submitting building assessment information. We will also be sending a questionnaire to the host deployment partners, and that will determine the GIS experience level and GIS support need. So this will complement the kind of the informal call with going over with the departments as well. And then finally, NAPC will set up the partner agreement with the host deployment partner and review the steps and benchmarks that need to be met. After that, it's the deployment and testing. And at this point, the day-to-day and meeting facilitation will be the project will be turned over to GIS Inc. They will work directly with the host deployment community and the customization and deployment of the app. And once that process and part of the process is complete, they will begin testing with support. And at that point, once everything has been complete, GIS will confirm with NAPC that the app has been deployed and tested successfully. The next phase is the post-project and wrap-up. At this time, there will be a final sign-off by all parties, and this is important that we do meet benchmarks along the way and that everybody is understanding of the time frame. There's certain time frames for deployment and testing and for feedback to be given, so that is will be monitored closely. Once that is done, the host deployment partner community will send the final report and comments and pictures and feedback to NAPC and the National Park Service. That's very important just to know, how the deployment went, comments for future use, pictures, and and other general feedback. And that's basically the life cycle of the project. Pricing, as I had mentioned, part of the aspect of assessing the GIS level in each in each community, that's how the pricing is based. And so there's expert experience, moderate, and then GIS novice experience with limited resource, and amount of support is based on that. So that is something that we'll look at closely to make sure you're getting the exact level of support that you need in each community. For the deployment policy, each application deployment in the files are to remain exclusively with the signatory partner of the agreement. The app is not to be distributed and deployed to communities beyond the contracting partner, because each deployment is customized to fit the needs and resources of the individual community. For deployments that were made possible through National Park Service funding, the GIS data collected as part of the funding will need to meet the National Park Service data sharing standards. The next Park Service provides those guidance in those standards. and the data sharing agreement to help meet the data standards and package surveys and data for FEMA. And so that's something to work closely if that's a particular for your type of funding and your deployment. And that is kind of the housekeeping and overview of the process and the logistics. Trying to make it as easy as possible and have as much resources available. But now at this time, I will turn this over to Emerson Chu with GIS Inc.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. I'm going to be going through a couple different things here. We'll start off with the PowerPoint slide. Let me switch this around. So I'm going to be starting out here with a PowerPoint presentation. We'll then be moving into ArcGIS Online and showing some of the functionality within ArcGIS Online, how the web map is structured, how the data is structured. We'll then be going in to a pre-recorded demo for Collector. You'll actually be able to see Collector in action. We'll then be coming back to wrap up a little bit with some more PowerPoint and then just a quick overview of the solution deployment tool. So kind of starting at a high level. So exactly what is the Esri ArcGIS platform? It's comprised of many different geospatial components, but the main ones that we're going to be dealing with for this project is ArcGIS Online. That is the cloud-based Esri repository. It's where all of this data is going to be stored and manipulated. It's where the schema that Stephanie alluded to, the data structure that's been built out for this project is stored. We're going to be using a mobile application, ArcGIS Collector, for the actual data collection process. And then if you so desire, ArcGIS Pro can also be used if you're actually going to be moving the NAPC schema to a different organization. And we'll get into that just a little bit at the end of the talk. I wanted to include two diagrams. The one on the left is ArcGIS Online. You can see we've got desktop, we've got apps that pull off of it, and again, it's all in the cloud. Our data is stored in the cloud. An alternative approach to this, and one that we see some other clients use, is the Esri ArcGIS portal option. What is portal? It looks exactly the same. However, you'll notice there's a relational database included in there. Also, portal was initially designed to live behind the Department of Defense firewall. So portal can be set up internally as well. So if there are security concerns and you only want Collector available to people within your network or people who are on a VPN through Collector, that is another option, another deployment option for you. That's not something we're going to be covering. We're going to be staying all within ArcGIS Online. We just wanted to kind of show some of the other options that are out there. The workflow for this particular project. It begins with data collection in the field, where we have multiple data collectors in the field. They can make edits directly in the field, whether they are connected with cell phone service or Wi-Fi. We also allow the ability to do disconnected editing, which the demonstration will provide. If you have no cell phone service or Wi-Fi, the option to collect is still available. Those edits are then pushed back to the cloud. Again, it's all pushed back to that hosted feature layer. From there, it can be pushed over to an operational dashboard. We put together a high-level, executive-level summary dashboard that kind of shows a roll-up of all the progress that's being made while data editors are in the field. ArcGIS Online, through one's desktop, and I'll show some of that functionality in just a bit, can manipulate the schema if needed. It shouldn't need to be manipulated. If a field needs to be hidden, though, or if a pop-up needs to be configured, that can all be done in the web browser from a client's desktop machine. Some of the licensing options, and this we need to discuss this as well. Formerly, ArcGIS Online required what is called a level 2 license. They've restructured this in the past year. It does require an ArcGIS Online viewer level with a field worker or an editor role. More documentation can be found on this in the Esri webpage in regards to how that licensing is structured. That is something to consider. Also, if you plan on doing any kind of moving of the schema, or you want to interact directly with the data in ArcGIS Online through a desktop application, ArcGIS Pro should be leveraged. Some of the key benefits of ArcGIS Online and this solution that we've deployed is it's all hosted in the cloud. There's no local software that's needed. You just really need an internet browser and internet connectivity to get to ArcGIS Online. There's no custom code. These are simple configurations. The pop-ups are all GUI based and intuitive. It also provides some flexibility to extend the solution, so it's easy to deploy the solution from organization to organization. And again, the great work that was done previously with coming up with a unified schema and the formatting of the data, it streamlines the data review and submission process. I'm going to jump out of the PowerPoint now. We'll come back to it in just a second, but I wanted to hop over into ArcGIS Online. So I'm going to minimize this. And what I have here before me is the NAPC, or NAPC, sorry, ArcGIS Online homepage. This is your main splash page. This is where you enter in ArcGIS Online. We're going to go past this, however, and we're going to dip down into the content folder. Here in my content folder, this is where I manage all of the data that I've created, all of my web maps and applications that will be consumed via Collector or an external web application. I have it organized into different folders. The folder that we're going to be looking at and working with today is this NAPC Collector folder. In it, you'll see several different items. I've got what's called a web map. These actually drive the Collector application. You'll see in the demo coming up that these are what Collector needs to consume and work with. We have our hosted feature layer. This is where all of the data is synced back to and stored. This is that common schema is right here. This NAPC Historic Building Collector point. We have our code for the solution deployment tool. We then have another map. If you choose to go the option of collecting polygons, this is available as well. We've also got two file geodatabases. These can be downloaded and deployed to your organization's ArcGIS Online account. Finally, we have our last feature layer, and this is just the polygon. We have a point and a polygon layer. I'm going to be covering the point layer today during this demonstration. Before I get too much further, I wanted to discuss how these web maps could be shared out to various users. In my upcoming demonstration, you'll notice that I only have access to the Historic Building Collector Dashboard map. That's all controlled through ArcGIS Online groups. So if I click on my Groups tab here, I can see that NAPC currently has two groups, NAPC Collector and NAPC Collector Demo. If I click into this group and I look at the members, I see myself, Emerson Chu, at GIS Inc. I have been invited to participate in this group, in the NAPC Collector Demo group. So I'll go back a level. If I look at the NAPC Collector, NAPC, sorry, and look at members, I notice that I am not a member of this group. I have not been added to this group, so anything shared to this group, I will not have access to. So just something to consider as you think about how you want to share and distribute your content. If we look here, this web map, we can update the sharing settings here by going to share, and we can see that it's shared with NAPC Collector and NAPC Collector Demo. I have only been invited to Collector Demo, however. I'll cancel that. We now want to actually look at the NAPC Historic Building Collector point data set itself. I'm going to pop over here. I've just got these tabs open for time's sake. I can start to get a better look at what this data set is made up of. I have my layers. This is a building point layer. You'll notice I also have here, I have a lot of related tables. And these are done on purpose, all these related tables. You'll see when we start collecting data that we've got many different attributes that can be populated. And if we stored them all in one feature class, you would have to scroll and scroll and scroll to try to find the actual attribute that you wanted to update. So we have created what are called these related tables that tie everything together. We'll look a little bit more at the actual settings of this layer. You can say that I do not want this item to be accidentally deleted. This one's probably pretty important. We can also choose how we want this data to be edited. Do we even want it to be able to be edited in the field via Collector? We can choose who we want if we want to keep track of who created and updated features. We can see the last time they were modified. And one of the more important things for this project is the enabling of sync. When we check this in ArcGIS Online, it does some back-end processing and makes this data available to be checked out for disconnected editing. We also have more control over how we want our editing to be allowed. Do we want an end user to be able to add, update, and delete features? Do we just want them to add and update so they can't actually delete a feature out? You can set it to update features. So all the end user can do, if you've already preloaded your data, is simply update attributes, right? So you have great, granularity. You can get very detailed into how you actually want to control your data. We'll actually look at some of the underlying data now by clicking on the Data tab. And I can start to see some of this data that's been populated. The layer that I'm looking at is buildings. I can look at other related tables as well. The door, we can see there's some information there. I want to go back to buildings though and point out one key thing. This is the global ID. This is generated by ArcGIS Online in the background for us. It's not something that we manage, and it's responsible for tying everything together. It is how ArcGIS Online knows that this row may have a door associated with it. It may have a chimney associated with it. It's all from this global ID. We'll click on the Fields tab now. Just gives us a different view of our data. We can start to see some of these individual fields. If I click on resource type, I can start to get an idea of what this field is. It looks to be a string value, so it can take text and numerical information. It has a length of 25 characters. And what we've done to try to help you in the field is give you a value of a list of values that you can pick from a pick list. These are domain values: building, district, object, site, structure. It's not free text. You do have a drop-down option. So this is where all of this is maintained and controlled in ArcGIS Online. I'm going to close out of this. And I'll point one last thing out while we're here. If I scroll down, I can start to see all of these related tables: current function, roof, window, additions. These are all again managed and controlled by the global ID field. That's what ties everything together. When you add a new record in Collector, on the back end, there's a global ID that's created that manages all this for us. So now we'll back out. We'll come back to my content. I'm actually going to jump into this web map. I've already got it opened here in this pane. For anybody who may be familiar with ArcGIS, I equate this to a map document in MXD. This is where I can do all of my work to prep it to get ready to send to Collector. I have some options up here at the top. I can change my base map if I prefer. Right now we just have imagery with labels, but if you wanted something else, you could. You could then save that. When the field editor opened up their map next, they would have a different base map. We can also set bookmarks. If there's a particular area of interest you wanted somebody to go to, you could add a bookmark. That Collector would then be able to zoom to that bookmark in the Collector application. We also have some other tools in here: a measure, a print tool, some basic functionality, and how you can work with this web map. If I come back over here to my Contents tab, I see my feature layer. These are all of my points, and these are all of my related tables. We'll come out here and we'll do a little bit of configuration. Everything that the Collector sees in the field is mainly controlled through these pop-ups. So if I hit Configure Pop-up, I'm presented with a whole list of options. If I click on a point right now, what is going to show is the category. So if I click on this point here, building shows up because that's how I have it defined to display. If I wanted to display another attribute, the address, I could just click and add that in there. The next time the user went, it would say the building plus the address. So you can customize this. And again, this all propagates over to the Collector application. I can then come to here and say, I want to configure my attributes. I want to configure what the end user can see. I can uncheck display and edit. That would mean that the end user does not see the resource type. It's not an editable field any longer. Let's see if we can find some fields that have been hidden. It looks like the relationship's been hidden. These are kind of default fields that are hidden. But this is behind the scenes. This is where all of our relationship information is stored and how that information gets propagated over in the collector application. But again, this is where we can really start to customize it. We've hidden some fields, the survey GUID, the locational GUID, things that don't need to be edited in the field are hidden here. You can also change the field alias if you wanted to change the name of it, how this one's done from survey ID to something a little more user-friendly. You can change that alias here. So this is all available to you in this web map. You can customize the web map and say that you don't need a field. I'll cancel out of this. Maybe in chimney, there's maybe a field that you don't need. It's not applicable to the work you're doing. You can simply just uncheck it here, right? If chimney features is not applicable to you, or material for whatever reason is not applicable to your community, you can uncheck this, and the end user doesn't have to worry about collecting that data. It's not removing the data. The data's not going anywhere. It's just simply making it not available to the end user. With that, I'm actually going to jump out of ArcGIS Online, and we're going to go into a pre-recorded movie that I made that'll show some of the high-level benefits and process of collecting data. So I'll go ahead and play that now. All right, we're going to jump out of the webinar and come back over into Collector for ArcGIS. I'm going to go over how to actually find and download the app, how to open and sign into your organization, how to open a web map and collect data, and then how to send that data back over to the ArcGIS Online Cloud. I'm using an Apple iOS device, so I simply open up the App Store and do a search for Collector for ArcGIS. Notice the first result that pops up for me is the Collector for ArcGIS app. This is from Esri. It is a free download. If you didn't already have it installed like I do, you would have a down arrow coming out of the cloud and let you know you needed to download it. If you were using an Android device, you would do the same thing in the Google Play Store. I want to point something out real quick. There is another version of the app, the Collector Classic. We do not want that app. That is an older version. We want to make sure we get the latest Collector for ArcGIS application. I'm going to go ahead and click open here. And I'm presented with the Collector for ArcGIS login screen. We're going to select sign in with ArcGIS Online. That's where we're storing all of our data. That's where the database lives, and that's where we're going to be pushing our information back to. I'm presented here with a login screen. Here's where we want to define which organization that we want to sign into. Your team lead should provide you this information. This is a URL prefix. If you were working with NAPC, it may be napc.mapsargis.com. In my case, I'm going to be using GISI. And I'm going to click remember this URL. What that does is if I log out of Collector and I come back in, it will remember this information for me, so I don't have to key it in again. We're going to hit continue. Minimize that. Now we need to provide some credentials. We told Collector which organization we want to sign into. We now have to give it some credentials. We're going to select the ArcGIS login, and you're going to have a username and password you'll enter here. You should have been assigned that from your volunteer team lead. Mine are already hard-coded in here, so I'm going to click sign in. And this is going to take us into the Collector app. I'm going to hit back right here, back again, and go to my main maps home screen. You should not see this long list of maps like I have in my maps. This is some of my content that I've already created. What you should see, and I'm going to scroll down into my groups and go into NAPC Collector Demo. What you should see is the NAPC Historic Building Collector Point or some derivative of that. It could be named a little bit different depending on your organization. Before I get started, what I want to do is alter a few settings in Collector. So I'm going to go back to my maps. And what I want to do is I want to click on this little profile on the top left. I can see my profile information. What I want to do is first update the accuracy. Since I'm going to be collecting inside today, I bumped it up to 75 feet. The default is 30 feet. What this tells us is the GPS needs to have at least you pegged within 30 feet of your actual location before it will record a point. If it's not within that threshold, it says, I can't get an accurate enough point. I'm not going to allow you to drop a point. So for the demonstration purposes, I've bumped it up to 75. If you see that you're not able to collect a point, you're having a hard time getting a good GPS reading, you can update this. I'll go back to my profile. We're going to alter one more thing. We're going to alter the photo size. So phones today can take extremely large, extremely beautiful pictures. Sending those back up to the cloud, they can add up to a lot of space in the ArcGIS Online cloud. The more space, the more data consumption we're using, the slower things tend to run. So it comes out by default on large. For this case, I've set it back to medium. Small may even work for your organizational purposes. So we've got those two updates. We've set our accuracy. We've set our streaming. We set our photo size, so we should be good to go and ready to collect some data. So I'm going to click done here. I'm going to go back into my NAPC Collector demo, and we're going to simply just open up this map by clicking on it. This is going to take me to my location, so my house here in South Georgia. A few navigational tools. If I want to zoom in, I can take my fingers and spread them apart. If I want to zoom out, I can pinch them together. Again, I can zoom around with my finger, just moving, panning up and down. If you have a mobile device and are familiar with Apple Maps, Google Maps, it's that same functionality. It's fairly intuitive. At the top right, I've got an arrow, which will let me know my location. I can then change my view. It gives me more of what I call like a view shed. So this little white triangle facing outward, that's where I'm looking. If I turn my mobile device left or right, it gives me that view frame. So kind of like a first person type view. We're not going to be using that for this demo, so I'm going to turn that off and we're going to look straight down. And what I see is that the arrow, the blue circle with the white triangle in it, that's my location. That's where it has me sitting right now. So we want to go ahead and drop a point on my house and record some information about my house. To do that, we'll click the plus button in the bottom right. We'll be presented with the coordinates, and we can go ahead and try to submit this point back. What I like to do is submit points back quite often just to make sure they're going back correctly. What I'm also doing is, as you notice, I'm moving the map around a little bit with this bullseye. Say I don't like that location that it's got me at. I want it to be kind of out in the house or in the center of the house. I can select it, you move the map around. You don't actually move the point around or the bullseye around. You move the underlying base map around to where you want it. It's a little bit counterintuitive. You can then let off. I'm going to say update point. Right, and this puts that point, it moves it manually to where I want it to go. We then want to go ahead and take a picture of our house. So in your case, if you're in the field, you would click take photo. This would use your camera roll or your camera to take an immediate picture. Since I'm not actually out in the field, I'm going to just click attach. And I'm going to go into my photo library, and I'm going to grab just a random picture of a house that I grabbed off the internet. And I'm going to go ahead in the top right and hit submit. What this does is this goes ahead and sends this point out to ArcGIS Online for me. And we'll notice that now my bullseye's off. I'm just left with the point that's glowing. That lets me know that's the active point. That is the active point that I've selected in the map. We can see some details about it, but we can't edit it right now. We just have it selected. To edit it, we'd simply click on the pencil on the bottom. There's a hyperlink button, a pencil, and then a duplicate button. We're going to click pencil. Scroll down a little bit, and then we can start entering in some information. My state, Georgia, the city or town, that's a free text. So we type in Thomasville, which is where I live, maybe the date of the survey date range. Something we want to make sure to key in before we submit is the survey status. So we'll give our progress of how we're coming along. Right now we're just in progress. So I'm going to go ahead and submit that as well. So we've dropped a point. We've collected some actual information about my house. There's a lot more information out there available to collect through what are called related tables. So what we're going to do to get to these related tables, I can select another point, which becomes highlighted. However, we want to make sure we have selected the point that we just dropped. And we did. Sometimes if you can't get it exactly right, it'll give you several options on which one to choose from. I just selected the one that I had just dropped. So what we want to do now we want to actually collect what are called related tables. So with the point selected, we're going to click the bottom right, the ellipsis, the three little buttons, the three little dots, and it brings me to all these what are called related tables, right? So I have additions, architectural class, architectural style, a chimney, all these extra things about the building, right? You may not have chimneys, you may not have cladding. So as opposed to putting us all in that one building point where you have to scroll and scroll and scroll through attributes, we included them as related tables. So I'll go ahead and click on chimney. I'm going to go ahead and hit add. Maybe I've got a photo that I want to take of the chimney. I can take that photo now and submit it. And again, this is why we want to keep those photo sizes small, because we may be submitting a lot of data back. Our chimney material, maybe concrete block, chimney features, chimney location. So we've got some information. We're going to go ahead and submit that back. So that's a related table. We're sending back chimney information about this particular building. We close this. We hit the X to close it out. I hit another X to come back to my main building. So right, we got to close those two out. We'll add one more, maybe a door. I'm going to hit add to add that door. Maybe take a photo or an attachment. We'll do our door type, our door material, and you get the picture. We can go ahead and enter in all this information and hit submit. So this information is being sent directly back to the ArcGIS Online Cloud for us as we're out here collecting. So if I've got this finished, I'm going to close this. We can close this. I'm going to go ahead and close my building. And that deselects that point. As I walk down to the next house in the row, my location should move, and I would do the same thing for the next house down the line as you work your way through. So what are we going to do now if we happen to be going into an area where we do not have any cell phone coverage? So what we have to do is we have to download an offline area. You'll notice the map below in gray, the offline area. It says offline areas below it. I pre-downloaded an area just for the sake of time for this demonstration. I'll demo it here on the Historic Building Collector point. Say we were going offline. We would click the ellipsis, add offline area. It's going to pull up an area for me. We'll just look in this rural area outside. I have a little box here. That is my highest level of detail. That is room. This is as far as I can go in and successfully download data. If I go in much further than that, it's not going to work. We don't need room information most likely for this survey. So what we're going to do is we'll change this up and maybe hit streets, right? We're going to be at that streets level of detail. We don't need to download the imagery all the way down to the room. We don't need that high pixel area. So we find an area that we want to download. Maybe this is our area. We hit download. That's going to download this extent that I've got selected to your mobile device. Should take around 10 megabytes, most likely, depending on how large of an area, and it'll store it directly to your phone. So I'm going to go to one that I've preloaded. This is an area right outside of Eckmore, right outside of Virginia Beach. Now again, this is not dynamic. This is a static image. If I scroll out, I can see that I don't have any information past there. This is downloaded strictly to me. If I zoom in much further, it gets grainy because I've just set the resolution to be at street level. I can still go ahead and collect a point, same way. I can move it around if I need to. So we want it to be right here on top of this building, update point. And we'll just go ahead and submit that back. I can go through the same process as I could when I had cell phone service. What we need to do now at the end of the day, we need to get that data off of my cell phone. We need to get back into ArcGIS Online. To do that, when I come back in and have cell phone or Wi-Fi connectivity, I can notice I have one local edit that I need to send back to the cloud. I click on the ellipsis and I say sync. So what this is going to do is it's going to take that one building that I just added and send it back up to ArcGIS Online. The next day when you come in, if you've moved to a different area, you would simply remove this downloaded base map and go through the whole process again and create a new offline area. We can see my edits have just been synced. If I wanted to then, I could remove this area and then let's go ahead and remove it. I would then have to go back in and redefine that offline area. So with that, we've gone over how to download Collector, how to access your and it looks like the video cut on me there a few seconds, but we're basically to wrap up there. We were going through the entire process of logging into ArcGIS Online, finding the Collector application in the App Store, collecting features, editing related tables, pushing all those back, and then going offline. If you notice here in this web map, if I zoom in, this is that point that I collected via the offline mode. You notice here, if I see show related records, these are all my different options. If I need to see any related records associated with that, I don't believe there's any. I can try clicking door, but there's no results because there is not a related table shown for me. I will point out one more thing while we're here. If I click into my buildings, and let's just navigate to a point that I took the other day. If I click on this point and my pop-up shows up, I can see show related records again, and then if I click on door, there should be some related information here, right? So we've got multiple points that I've taken. So all this hard work, everything that we're doing in the field is coming back into ArcGIS Online, and as I showed in the PowerPoint, we have what's called an operational dashboard. So we need to see all this information that's coming back in. We put together a NAPC Collector Dashboard. I'm opening it now. It lives in ArcGIS Online. This can be customized to your area's extent. I've got it kind of set to a high level right now. I notice if I zoom in, the point I did the other day, these filters start to decrease. Total inspections completed is 3. Then I have a pick list of some of the ones that I've done. I can get a quick idea of the status of the building, if it's completed or not. I can then filter by my particular editors that I've got in my organization. Right now it's just myself and NAPC, so if I were to click on NAPC, there's going to be no edits in that particular region. I can set it to Emerson Chu, and it'll show just my edits, so we shouldn't see the one that was taken up here outside of Detroit. So there's more work that can be done on these dashboards. There's a lot more functionality that can be added. You can start to get real-time edits as they come in to see who is making progress, what type of buildings that are coming in. We have framed this one out though as kind of a template to be moved to other organizations, so you can get a quick executive level summary of how the data is coming in. With that, I'm going to jump back into PowerPoint and wrap up a few things here. One of the other things, the beautiful things about this solution is the ability to deploy this web map from one organization to the next. All of those pop-ups have already been configured. If you were to just copy the layer over and try to build a new web map, you would spend a lot of time configuring that web map. So we've created a solution deployment tool. It works in ArcGIS Pro. One of the requirements is that you take one of those empty files, your databases that I pointed out in ArcGIS Online, and you publish that over to your ArcGIS Online site. So you've got that shell over. We have then set up a solution that will move your web maps over and repoint them to an existing service. Here's a little bit of what the tool looks like. I'm going to actually open up Pro real quick and show that. So here's my Pro document. Here is my toolbox, and this is the script, copy items from portal to portal. So I can start to fill out some of the information. I'm copying information from the source, from NAPC. I tell it a folder that I want it to look in. So in our case, it would be NAPC_collector. The script is going to go crawl this folder and find all applicable web maps and move them over. I then key in my organization's ArcGIS Online URL, the user, that user's password, and then where I want that information to go. right? It could be organization XYZ underscore collector, whatever folder you want to designate. We then have to specify a feature service URL. So that feature service that you published with that empty shell schema will have a REST endpoint, right? It will have a URL. So all we're telling the script to do is go move some maps over from NAPC to my organization and repath them to your particular feature service. And there can be a lot of moving parts there. So what we have put together to assist, and we can distribute this out, is the NAPC Administrator Guide. It has a whole breadth of information on how to actually deploy this, how to configure your web maps, how to configure groups. A lot of what I've just talked through can be all covered in this NAPC Administration Guide. Again, it is available to look through. We've made that available at your convenience. With that, I'm going to switch it back over to Stephanie now to wrap up.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Emerson, very much. That was helpful, and you know, to be able to see all the steps and getting us into the guide. I guess what last piece would be kind of next steps. If you haven't already received the following, we will be distributing the following reference guides and documents. We have the CRSurveyor Administrator Guide, the User Guide for Field Testing, the Draft Host Community Deployment Agreement to work through, and then that assessment questionnaire that I had talked about earlier to get a feel for the level of GIS and technical expertise. So that's the last piece that I have. I've included our contact information for my information with NAPC, and then you know, Megan Brown and Deidre McCarthy with the National Park Service as well. But I appreciate your time, and thank you very much.